Hey everyone, in this video I'd like to talk to you about some useful Japanese that you can use when eating out in Japan. Okay, so this video is going to be split up into 3 sections. So in the first section I'm going to introduce you to some Japanese that you can use when entering a restaurant. In the second section I'm going to introduce you to some Japanese that you can use when making an order. And in the last section I'm going to introduce you to some Japanese that you can use when paying the bill. Usually in Japan, when you enter a restaurant, a waiter would come to you and he'll ask, "Nanmei sama desu ka? Nanmei sama desu ka?" which roughly translates to how many people are you? You can answer this question by saying something mei desu. So for example, ichimei desu. Ichimei desu, which means one person. You can also say sanmei desu. Sanmei desu, which means 3 people, for example. So the next thing you're probably going to get asked is table seki ka counter seki ka dochira ga ii desu ka? Which roughly translates to, would you like to sit at the table or at the counter? To which you can answer, table seki de onegai shimasu. Table seki de onegai shimasu, which means I'd like to sit at the table. Or, counter seki de onegai shimasu. Counter seki de onegai shimasu, which means I'd like to sit at the counter. The next thing you can ask, if you'd like, is, zashiki wa arimasu ka? Zashiki wa arimasu ka? Which means, do you have tatami seats? You can also ask, kodomo you no isu wa arimasu ka? Kodomo you no isu wa arimasu ka? Which translates to, do you have a children's chair? Now we're at section 2 and you're seated at the table. So after looking at the menu for a bit, you've decided what you want to eat. So the next thing you need to do is to basically say, sumimasen, sumimasen, which means excuse me. In Japan, it's really common to raise your hand and say sumimasen to call you the waiter. Don't be afraid to raise your voice because it's really common. So now that you've gotten the waiter's attention, you can proceed to make an order. So now you can say, 注文してもいいですか? 注文してもいいですか? Which means, can I order? In some cases though, the waiter may come to you and ask, ご注文はお決まりですか? ご注文はお決まりですか? Which means, are you ready to order? So now that you're ready to order, you could say, something をお願いします. Something をお願いします. Where something means what you'd like to eat. So for example, 唐揚げをお願いします. 唐揚げをお願いします. Or you can also point at the menu and say これをお願いします. これをお願いします. Where これ means this, so I'd like this. So in some cases, you may want to order the same thing twice. So you can say, for example, 唐揚げを2つお願いします. 唐揚げを2つお願いします. Which roughly translates to, I'd like 2 karage dishes. When you want to order more than one dish, you can say, お好み焼きを1つとラーメンを1つお願いします. お好み焼きを1つとラーメンを1つお願いします. Which translates to, I'd like 1 okonomiyaki and 1 ramen. You can also ask what something is by pointing at the dish. これは何ですか? これは何ですか? Which means, what is this? You can also ask the waiter for recommendations by saying, おすすめはありますか? おすすめはありますか? And if you'd like to have it, you can say, じゃあそれをお願いします. じゃあそれをお願いします. Which means, okay, I'll have that. You can also ask, 英語のメニューはありますか? 英語のメニューはありますか? Which means, do you have an English menu? You can also ask, vegetarian メニューはありますか? Vegetarian メニューはありますか? Do you have a vegetarian menu? If you'd like to ask if there's some ingredient in the dish, you can do so by asking, somethingは入っていますか? Somethingは入っていますか? You can, for example, say, 卵は入っていますか? 卵は入っていますか? Which translates to, is there egg inside the dish? You can also ask them if they can remove it for you by saying, something抜きにできますか? Something 抜きにできますか? For example, 卵抜きにできますか? 卵抜きにできますか? Which means, can you make it without it? If you want, you can also ask for water by saying, お水をいただけますか? お水をいただけますか? Which means, can I have some water? So now we're at section 3 where we want to pay the bill. So in Japan, there are 2 ways of paying the bill usually. The first one is that you pay at the table. So if you're at the table and you want to pay, you say, お会計をお願いできますか? お会計をお願いできますか? Which means, can I get the check? So, and the second pattern is where you go to the register. If you go to the register, you'll probably have a piece of paper where you take with you that has the meal details. So you show it to the employee at the register, You can also ask here, クレジットカードで払えますか? クレジットカードで払えますか? Which means, can I pay with a credit card? And lastly, so when you leave the store, it's common courtesy to say ごちそうさまでした. ごちそうさまでした, which means thank you for the meal. You can also say おいしかったです. おいしかったです, which means it was tasty or it was good. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is roughly what usually happens in restaurants in Japan. I hope this Japanese will help you in your travels and you'll get to use it when you're in Japan. So thanks again for watching and see you later.